What's going on, guys? Car Guy V8 here with another video, and today I'm tackling a budget 357 small block build. I traded a little Ford 302 for this engine, and I had $300 in the 302, so now I got $300 in this thing, and I'm basically just gonna be throwing this together as cheap as I can. I picked up head gaskets, intake gaskets, and head bolts off for about $100, a touch more than that, and then oil and some other fluids for this, like brake clean and all that. Right now, I'm sitting right at about $500 in all of my supplies, including the gaskets and all that stuff. So this will be just a really cheap little budget build. I want to see what it'll do. I've got some Mexican 369 crate engine heads. Those came with it, but they needed some work, so I've taken all the valves out and cleaned them up and all that stuff. I didn't put new springs on it because, like I said, this is a budget. I thought about putting Z28 springs on it, but decided against it because the cam in this is pretty small. It's not a stock cam as far as I know. I got it from a buddy. He said it had a little bit of chop, but nothing crazy. So we're just going to throw this thing together, put those 76cc heads on, and we're going to see what it can do. Here's the chamber side of one of these 369 heads, and it is smooth. I've been sanding it. Still got those marks, of course, because obviously the head has some miles on it. But it's nice and smooth. Should be able to go down on that engine with no trouble. The engine, you can see it's got some miles on it, but it was running. It was pulled because it blew a head gasket. So I think just for a cheap little engine, I bet you it's going to be pretty fine. There's not really a ring groove there, but you can see there's not really any cross hatching left. I am going to clean up this surface, of course. I haven't started yet, but all the lifters spin nice and freely. I've cleaned up the lifter bay here some already. I put fresh oil in it, primed it up. Oil came out of the lifters, so I think we're going to be good to throw on the heads here once I get this all cleaned up. I'm going to have this engine looking nice. I'm telling you right now. I'm thinking, those heads are off of one of the 190, 260 horse 350 crate engines. 260 being you got really good exhaust and basically no accessories on it. Good intake, good carburetor. 190 being if you have basically everything stock, every accessory, including smog pumps and just a basic carburetor. So I think with this 357 small block and the mild cam it's got, I think we shouldn't have any trouble hitting at least 250 horse and over 300 foot-pounds. So I'm going to start cleaning everything up and put it on a time lapse, and let's build this sucker. Both cylinder heads are on, torqued to 65 foot-pounds in 3 sequences. I'm using Felpro .039 head gaskets. So mixed with the 40 over flat top pistons and these 76cc crate motor heads, it should be around 8.6 to 1. So nothing crazy, but much better than stock at least. So the main thing I have in this engine is a bunch of time. This is my first one to really go down and dirty and clean everything myself instead of having a machine shop do it. I don't have all the proper tools, so this was just done in the backyard with a bunch of oven cleaner. These heads were nasty beforehand. Valves were sticking open in some of them. They were all had so many carbon deposits. I was able to get some off, but they still don't look quite the best, but they're okay enough for a budget build application, in my opinion, at least. So probably when it's all said and done, I may have around 550 in this engine, 357 small block. But so far, I've got a good 20 hours and everything. Like I said, a ton of cleanup went in this. And I've still got to clean the intake surface. I did it a little, but you can see it's not good enough yet. So I'm going to do it here soon. But let me show you the intake I'm using. So this one I got off trade to a buddy of mine for some Fox body parts. So it's actually a single plane. I know it's not a dual plane, but I wanted to try a single plane out with the stall converter I have. Any low end torque loss will be negated just because of the stall converter I have. Maybe it'll help a little up top, but I doubt I'll be revving it high enough to actually notice a difference. But I got it off trade, so no money in it because they were leftover parts that I have. So that ought to be cool. I'm thinking of painting it black. The valve cover's black and the head's blue, so we'll see how that looks. It's actually still got gaskets on it, but I'm not going to use those because I went ahead and bought new ones. And the 383 in the truck, man, this thing's just a turnkey engine. I've been driving this truck a lot lately. It's been maybe 3 hours since I drove it, so it's still a little warm, but... Let's get back to building that engine, shall we? I think next I'm gonna borrow the push rods from that engine that's over there, and I'm probably gonna borrow the rocker arms from another set of heads that I have. So no money lost in either of those applications. All right, guys, the budget 357 build is finally finished. It took me a couple of weeks of just working a couple hours a night pretty much, before the sun went down, and that's pretty much all it took to finish it, and some weekends too, of course. But, no machine shop work, just everything done in my garage or outside with tools that I had on hand. But it's missing one final piece that I've been really looking forward to show y'all, so let's take a look at it. Check out that carb scoop. I know this is not going to make very much horsepower, but since this is going in the truck and it has no hood right now, I figured it might as well look cool. And I kind of based the color scheme off of getting a carb scoop like this. And I'm not including it in the budget just because it's not necessary, but I wanted it. Regular air cleaner is what, like 20, 30 bucks. So I'll just... when I test on the engine stand, I'll probably run a regular air cleaner, but I wanted to get one of these because I've always wanted one. So let me show y'all some of the issues I ran into in building this engine real quick. Look how cool this sucker looks. If it runs as good as it looks, man, I'm gonna be happy. But with building this, there's some things you just can't really cheap out on, like, head gaskets, intake gaskets. You wanna get good stuff. Exhaust gaskets, I guess that's your own preference. These aren't the best, but that's kind of just to run it for a bit on the engine stand. I may get some rim flex ones, or I may just keep these. It doesn't really matter. Had to get a flex plate for it. This engine did not have a single bolt with it other than, what's holding the bottom end together. So I had to get every bolt, including intake bolts, with which this Wind 7546 intake. It's really not the best intake, but it's what I was able to trade for. From what I was reading, it's not the best intake. But I actually had to get two new intake bolt sets because these center ones right here, I guess I just wasn't thinking ahead. Of course, these regular size intake bolts aren't going to work with that high-rise plenum right there. But I actually had to cut this bolt off. I had to cut a good 1/2 inch off to get it to work. That's one reason I didn't show the time lapse of putting the whole time lapse of putting the intake on. It was embarrassing, just being honest. But just a basic 750 carburetor on it. This is one that I actually rebuilt using 2 different carburetors. I had 2 different bad 750 Edelbrock carburetors. So I broke them both down and combined them to make one good one. So this will be its maiden voyage. So if anything doesn't work the best on this, it might be this carburetor, since it was made from 2 bad ones. Well, I mean bad, I mean one was dropped and was cracked all up here, and all its linkage was bent. The other one, somebody had turned in the idle screws so much that they had cracked the inside. So I used the air horn off of one of them and then the body off the other, and then had to put all the linkage back in. It was actually quite a chore, but Edelbrocks are easy, so it wasn't too bad. Distributor, I just had it laying around, but it still was a brand new one at one point. All these wires, you see they're really long. They're just basic Rock Auto 8mm wires. I think that's what they are. Yeah, 8mm. But let's see if she'll run. Turns out my extra fuel pump I had laying around is actually bad. Also, I did not have the fitting for it anyway, so I ran to the O'Reilly's and picked up one of these fuel pumps here. They did not have one that already had a fitting in it that was within the budget. You know, this is the $20 fuel pump. So we tried every single extra fitting that they had there for sale, and nothing would work. So needless to say, I was a little frustrated when I got home. I went through my parts bin trying to find something laying around, and lo and behold, on this ancient dinosaur Quadrajet, I found this fitting, which is ugly. I already sprayed carb cleaner through it, but that right there is what's going to save the day, guys. I was afraid I wasn't going to get this done in time for a video, but this right here, so stupid. All right, guys, thank y'all for watching this 357 small block build. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I enjoyed building it, and honestly, everything went even smoother than I expected. There was a little bit of smoke out the exhaust on the first startup, which I thought there would be just because of all the oil in the cylinder. But right after that, cleared up, runs good oil pressure. My rebuilt carburetor worked like it should. My rebuilt distributor works just like it should. The carb scoop, that thing's so cool. Thanks for watching, guys. And I'm going to put this engine in something here very soon, so y'all should see it very soon on the channel.